There's not a jet that flies over this parade, as I recall. So kind of fun. Then the cool thing. How many of you were there at Acceptance Day when the kids marched in? So this is I was not there. This is the exact opposite. When the seniors march out, and Christ, I'll start crying about it right now. I mean, this is so emotional, and it's just so cool. But as you can see, and I'm sorry that the pictures aren't great, but in the background, that the squads are standing as they always do. And here, these are the seniors. They have now, stepped out, and now they're coming at you, and they are separating from their class. And I forget what's the opposite of acceptance? There's a rejection. Rejection. This is rejection day. Perfect.
Story about Ned.
So one of the things is that, just for the heck of it, tell you a little famous story is that Ned, because he couldn't land on the field, it has landed at the airstrip. And he's landed, it's 10 o'clock and the parade is starting, and he's down at the airstrip. And he comes up, and he's now at the stands. We all know where they are in Stillman Field. He got a ride up there, and he's like, what do I do? He called me. I'm like, well, you've been here for 4 years. And so I said, go to the medics, because sure enough, a few kids are falling and going out. I said, go to the medics on the other side of the field and have them escort you. No one will know. Yeah, no. Well, just think about being in the stands and trying to get to them. It's about 2 miles around to run. So,
and everyone's watching this one cadet.
So anyway, so he got there, and he was able he was able to stand out. Ned happens to be, right. You obviously everyone you kind of, and this is open seating as it always is, so you can kind of be where your child's squadron is. And it's again, it's so emotional. It's just fantastic. And then at the end, the seniors, firsties are still standing at a and now the squads are retreating from the field without that wrong word. Our forces never retreat, but they are leaving the field, and without the seniors in the squad. It's really great. And I think that's the last Tuesday picture, but again, like all other parades, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for photographs, and everyone's out there because the kids are in full dress and all. It looks.
I think they call that the march in review. So, typical parade, the squadrons all march past the reviewing stand and salute as they go past the reviewing stand. The squadrons march past their seniors in review.
And are being reviewed by the seniors.
So that's really
Gotcha.
kind of impressive.
Gotcha. Neat. So as I recall, this ended at about noon. It started at noon or shortly thereafter. Throughout all of this, kids are packing up and kind of boxes, and you're kind of, going up. We've all done this part. You're going up to the dorms, and then you might drive to the hotel, which, as we all know, means a 2-hour round trip and all of that. But the other big event for Tuesday is the commissioning ceremony, and maybe you want to talk about that.
The commissioning is interesting because the squadron plans it, so that's not something that is the same. So it can have a very different flavor depending upon which squadron. And they are all over the entire academy. So as you drive to yours, you're seeing other commissioning ceremonies, some outside, some inside. So the cadet needs to choose an officer to give the oath, and Andrew's brother happens to be a Hopkins police officer, and so he asked him to come out there and do his oath. So that was really special to us. It was interesting because they were the first ones up there, and Andrew had not been to a commissioning. Had you, Andrew? Had you been to a commissioning before? So he had never been to a commissioning, so he really didn't know how it worked, and he and his brother get up there, and his brother starts reading the oath, and Andrew's like like wondering where it's coming from, but it was posted on a board behind him. So it was kind of it just sees his brother all of a sudden doing all these things, and then they have to pin the boards on. And there were some amusing pictures that Andrew's brother couldn't get the boards on. Well, it turned out that you can have your family members come up and put the boards on, and most of the cadets got up and their families put the boards on. But of course, Andrew hadn't told us that.
Oh, no.
And
We didn't know either until, Mom and Dad, would you please come up? And I looked at Woody, and said, what are we
Yeah,
doing?
and see, nobody had gone before us, so I didn't know it. And it turned out, I said, I'm actually really grateful because, again, those ceremonies are a little emotional, and it was really nice for me just to watch my sons up there and observe that. But a lot of families do go up and, they have one person pin one board on and one person pin another board on.
And maybe ask your cadet if they've, because again, sometimes they had a friend, sometimes they had parents, but just ask your cadet ahead of time. I didn't know to ask, and so I didn't know that we were going up there. Had I known, whatever. It's nice to know.
Nor did it sink in on us that somewhere along the line I do recall, oh yeah, we did know about this, but Ned had a friend of his, he's actually from a church he goes to in town. He's a captain, no longer at the academy. Ned had him swear in, but any retired military can do it as well. And Ned's grandfather was a colonel in the reserves, active duty Korean War, and then colonel through reserves. And he was there. He could have done it, even though he's retired, which would have been really cool. And we didn't know about that. Now, apparently, and maybe Kate can correct me on this, but apparently he will be able, when Ned is commissioned, his next commission, when he becomes a first lieutenant, his grandfather could do that, or at some future commission. But it is a cool thing that if you have any military in the family, or a police officer like a brother, someone, you can do it.
Retired judge?
I think judges are in there. I think a judge can do it so. But it has to be in the service of something.
But this for me, out of the whole graduation thing, this was the most important. And I didn't know that until I got there.
And I think that's most important to the cadets,
Yes.
too. Is that right, Andrew?
That's what my daughter said. She said, that's it. That if there's one thing you come to, it's this.
And
You don't
go-
have to sit in
yeah.
a stadium with 1 million people. And you don't have to go to anything. She
But you
wants
want
us
to.
to be there. And guess what? We found out it's 7 p.m. and they don't have a location.
They wouldn't allow that.
No, they ran out of room. There's not enough room in the location they were given. They're scrambling.
No. And this was,
Already.
this happened to be up above the chap in the woods as you come in, and the inner campus, the cadet campus is here towards the mountains. There's a log cabin. I never knew it was there.
It's called the Cadet Lodge.
The
Really?
cadet, yeah. It had burned. I think it had. Andrew, have you ever been to that cadet lodge before, that log cabin? Had you ever been there?
Yeah, a lot of times water means we'll throw parties.
Okay. But it had like burned down your freshman year or something, right? Or they rebuilt. It's just a gorgeous cabin.
Where was Andrew?
This was in the Eagles Club, which is,
It's like a convention center.
it's an officers club on the,
It's already been announced though for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure.
That's big.
Yeah, they'll be in 40 different locations.
Right, but they're scrambling because it's not big enough what they were given.
Gotcha.
So they actually are in the process of trying to find one now.
Yeah,
Their squad.
they'll find it, I'm sure. So, Kate?
There's more than 40 locations.
My daughter graduated last May also, and I was kind of relieved that her commissioning was at 7:30 at night indoors in the visitor center, so we wouldn't have to worry about the weather, and it gave us a little reprieve between the parade and the commissioning. But it was a gorgeous day, and inside the visitor center, it was kind of dark, and the oath that they were supposed to have up there, one of the cadets that was planning this, like they have the underclassmen cadets planning this, he didn't bring a backup bulb or something for the projection. And so my husband commissioned Haley and swore her in, and we were one of the first ones because our name begins with a C. And he was expecting the oath of office up on the board, and it wasn't. So they handed them, he didn't have it memorized. I told him he should have it memorized. They handed him, so he read it and swore her in. But they never turned the lights up, really. So it was just kind of poor planning. But it was a little dark, and we were the first ones, so the pictures weren't. Other families came up and did a lot more pictures and stuff like that. We didn't have a hog time. But the outdoor pictures that day were 4:30 in the afternoon, and they were probably amazing. So plan for everything, and it was all great.
Ours was at about 4:30, so we did have time for dinner afterwards. Again, we had a family dinner Tuesday night, as I've said a million times. Make reservations. We ate at Garden of the Gods, and we gave Ned a saber as a graduation present. You probably heard it before and seen it and all, but the kids, Andrew's not here, we can't ask him. Did you get? Yeah, I mean they do love it. It is a great gift, and you can get it at the visitor center. In fact, I had called ahead just to make sure they had them, and they said yeah. And I bought it that day, right there. So anyway, again.
How long does that take? Because if you have a 7 p.m. commissioning, you can't get to dinner.
No, you're not going to. We had a 4:30 commissioning, so we had.
And you had a 7.
We got out about 10 o'clock at night, so had a little reception after.
So plan on a couple 3 hours.
Yeah, we
Eat
did dinner
beforehand, you
before.
have the late.
Okay, thank you.
Ours was 7, and we did dinner before, and then
Okay.
went right from the commissioning to the ball. So that was kind of nice, so that the two kind of flowed in.
The next day is graduation day, and again, just you've seen the kids do so many things so many times, but one of the most, I think, amazing is just when the seniors, the firsties, walk in. You can see the seats. They're halfway through. They're right at the aisle right there. They've already walked through a whole bunch of seats, so they come into the stadium, then they kind of separate so they can walk down the aisle. And it's just one of those things where, again, every kid is in step. The music is just blaring a march, and it's pretty spectacular. And the white behind it is to protect the field because the vice president had to drive to the stage instead of walk, and so that's for his limousine to get there. And I'm sure there are security reasons for that too. But
Who's the speaker this year?
yeah, who is speaking?
We don't know yet. They don't know yet.
Gotcha.
I can talk about Andrew's.
Yeah, that's Andrew's picture
Yeah,
down there.
that was Andrew's picture. We have a friend that has he's a production,
Video guy.
a video guy, he does video productions, and so he had a really high-powered camera. And President Biden spoke to Vice President Biden spoke to every single cadet. It was just amazing, because that's a long time to shake every cadet's hand and speak to every cadet. And Andrew, he spoke a little longer because Andrew's squadron was 39, and they were the top squadron last year, so that's his squad sitting behind. One squad sits back there. And so when he went up there, they all did catcalls. And so Vice President Biden, he was the first 39 to go up, because he was in that first section of cadets before they get to the separate squadrons. And so he stopped him and said, "Why are they all shouting at you?" And so Andrew told him about that. So they had a little bit longer conversation, but it was really amazing that he could keep that stamina up. I was impressed.
If you watch the video when President Obama did it his first year in office, and he turned and shook hands, and then he turned 180 degrees. And obviously Biden's done this a few times before, because Biden did about 30 degrees and 30 degrees. You may not think, but try turning 180 degrees
That many
1,050 times.
I know.
So, yeah, it was
Wow.
great. I put in Hannah Peterson's picture here. Her dad took this. Again, once you get in the stadium, it's all friends, it's all family, it's very casual. He went down to the very front and of the railing and took this picture. They do not take official pictures,
Yeah, they do.
which I kind of.
They do.
Touch sent them.
Yes, they
Did
do.
they? Well, then the one we got was,
And I
Ours
didn't
wasn't
order them
very
because they
good.
were not very good.
oh, then that was it. The one we looked, you know, the other cadet was in front of Biden, and so we didn't have the cadet vice president photo that, so I'd be responsible for your own is my lesson there. And then it is amazing how they time it so perfectly, and you know it's gonna be timed perfectly and all, but how it's not like they have to wait 30 seconds and then the superintendent says, class of 2000, you are just, I mean, it just seems to flow in the speech, and all of a sudden there's like just a 2-second pause in class, and those Thunderbirds are right there on cue, and it is outrageous. So it's pretty great. And then off into the wild blue yonder. And the thing that's like I guess all graduations and you know weddings, then it's just like. And you packed your boxes, you know, and you know, I got to go to the airport, and aunts and uncles are taking off, and
But in terms of getting out of town that night, late flight, like 7 p.m., don't think you're gonna get out of Colorado Springs before 4. You know, we actually went up to Denver, spent the night with our son who's in college up there, and then flew out the next morning. But you maybe want to stay in Colorado Springs Wednesday night, but don't get a 2 o'clock flight or something.
That's what we did, we spent left on
What
Thursday.
happens with like the packing up? So are they like out
They
of
have
their
to-
dorms by a certain?
Andrew, they're out that day, right? Andrew,
Like
you're out
it's in
Wednesday,
hours.
graduation day.
It's an hour.
And I think the week before, correct me Andrew if I'm wrong, but I think the week before, at least Ned ended up just taking stuff slowly out, so it wasn't a big crunch on graduation day.
They all know, they kind of all know that that's what they need to do.
And where do they take it out to?
Their girlfriend's apartment? Fiance's apartment.
Yeah.
Different
I don't know.
spots, like we didn't do any of it with Andrew. I mean, you took it all up to Stefan's grandma's house and, you know.
It really depends on what you're doing next.
You really have much stuff.
My daughter does.
It depends on who you are.
Yes, it does.
I can tell you what our perspective was.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, good.
Haley, Haley was gonna go to Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi for pilot training as her next assignment, and so she was gonna drive from Springs to Minnesota, you know, spend her 60 days and do various things. So anything that she just wanted to have at Columbus Air Force Base, she had shipped directly. The Air Force, you know, they give you all the information, the cadets all the information. She had it the week before, it's called TMO, whatever. They come in and have everything packed up, they ship it off, and it's like put in a big K-loader or something, and then she could get it 90 days after she showed up at Columbus Air Force Base. So she knew she wouldn't see that stuff for a long time. Anything that she put in her car, she had these big plastic bins that, you know, she's really organized, so she had everything in there. We arrived at the academy on a Thursday for the, everything, for the first thing was the baccalaureate service, so we didn't really have a whole lot going on until Sunday morning, and our guests were arriving on Saturday and Sunday. So on Thursday afternoon, I think she took her Subaru and brought the stuff to it. We rented a house, and she put it in the garage where we were renting, everything that she was gonna take in her car or our car back to Minnesota. And then she, in her room, all she had was a duffel bag with overnight stuff. She stayed at the academy up until graduation night when they would get kicked out. And she just had her uniforms that she needed for each event, and you know, some personal items, and that's all she had to haul out of her room the day of graduation.
Some, you know, some kids, their sponsor families are very, I know, you know, a lot of them, sponsor families end up with boxes in their garage for, you know, a couple of weeks or months until this stuff is shipped out. So that's one thing you mentioned. Haley stayed in her dorm. Ned came down and stayed with us at Garden of the Gods, which again is, you know, 20 minutes from the south gate. I'm really glad he's going to be a pilot. I'm glad they have checklists because Ned forgets stuff all the time. And I mean, at least twice during that, it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot this part of my uniform, or I forgot that, and then, you know, and we just know how big that academy is, so make sure they have everything with them if they stay with you in the hotel, so you don't have to go through the mad dashes that we did a couple times. So.
Well, and Andrew stayed with us most of the time, most of the evenings. And after we moved out of the house, a couple days later, we get a call from the landlord saying, hey, there's a uniform here. I called Andrew, he goes, donate it.
He said, throw it away, don't want it.
And so we had driven out, and Andrew had like maybe 3 boxes of stuff that we took back home with us. And then later on in the summer, I get a call. I think Andrew kind of coordinated it, but a local moving company showed up and picked that stuff up and sent it out to him. And it took, I don't know, what, a month, 2 or 3 weeks to get it. So.
Haley knew she'd need her blue uniform and fatigues and some of those things when she showed up in Mississippi. So she obviously had that stuff set aside to put in her car and drive back to Minnesota. Anything that she's going to need for the first couple months, you have to have with you.
Really? You can't have it packed and sent?
But
Because you won't be able to retrieve it in time for your job.
She ended up in processing in Mississippi, and then a few weeks later went back to Pueblo, Colorado for a flight screening program, and then went back to Mississippi, and she didn't get her stuff until after that. So it's probably end of September or something like that when she got her stuff from.
They can move all their stuff on their own and then just get paid.
Yeah, you can do it many different ways. Yeah.
Just looking back on the experience, if you said, you know, what would you do differently? One of the pieces of advice, again, that Daryl or one of the other parents said is, don't take your own pictures. Ask your friends and family that are there with you to take pictures, and you just enjoy it. And that was good. That was good because, you know, I was able to watch everything. Now, one of our friends didn't give us the pictures until 2 weeks ago. So it took me a long time to get, and it was only because we knew we were doing this, and it's like, Greg, I need those pictures. So he's the one that had the powerful camera that took that picture of the airplanes and their front slide and some of the other ones. So it took a while. And you know, there are some things I would have liked pictures.